Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to India HR Live, where we are committed to helping you transform your HR function. And we are doing that by one show at a time, so don't miss any of our shows. We broadcast our shows on every first and third Tuesday at indiahrlive.com. And please follow the hashtag IndiaHRLive on Twitter, and you will be able to um, get the updates of all the information that we are going to do for the next 60 minutes. We have fantastic guests lined up for you guys to talk more about the new things in HR. And we know it is all about data in analytics. So stay tuned and let's get to it. But before that, let me give you the hashtag. It is hashtag IndiaHRLive. If you're on Twitter, give us a shout out. And if you have any questions to our guest, please post it as well and we can pull that up. So let's get to it and let's meet our guest. And we have Kathy Misladine. She's an SPHR. Well, I know Kathy by doing my radio show at Drive Through HR, and she's been a guest many times, and I know she is the #1 expert to talk about data and analytics. So without further ado, let me welcome Kathy. She is the founder and Chief Performance Officer at Intellectual Capital. Kathy, welcome to India HR Live.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Right. So, Kathy, if you can talk a little bit about yourself, where you are from, and what you do, our audience can learn more about you because we have audience coming up from India and across the world. So, people really, really appreciate that.
Okay. As she said, my name is Kathy Misseldine, and I'm with Intellectual Capital Consulting, and I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. Our firm does consulting worldwide, and my passion is around HR metrics and analytics. I got my start in the insurance industry, got real focused on it, got back to school, and I really focused on helping clients get to their metrics that matter, because so many times we measure a whole bunch of different things that don't really matter. So really it's about getting down to those metrics that drive business results. So that's where my passion lies. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you so much. And we're going to talk more about that, but before that, let's meet Ramesh Ranjan. He is the VP in HR Services for HR Services at Schneider Electric India. And he's been on the show before as well, and you have met him, and we are blessed to have his presence again on the show. So let's welcome him back.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. If you can talk a little bit about yourself, if those audience who are joining for the first time, it'll help them to know who you are and what you do.
Sure, Nisha. Welcome back to the show. And it's a privilege to be back again on this show, and I think you do a great job in terms of promoting HR worldwide. So I'm Ramesh Ranjan. I work for Schneider Electric in India. I'm based out of Bangalore, and I look after the HR services for Schneider Electric in India. Basically providing the HR shared services support to all of businesses in India. I've been in the profession of HR for the last 27 years, and certainly I believe that HR analytics plays a very key role in terms of providing support to the business. And I look forward to the discussions in the next 60 minutes.
Well, thank you. So let's meet Ilango R. Well, we had a little bit of a technical issue. We just did a test run a while ago, but in the beginning, we were kind of afraid that, what is happening? He's not, his video is not working, but luckily we have him on board. So let's meet him, and I am personally so blessed to have his support right from the beginning when I started my blogging, and he's been there for the entire support, even though if it is, here in the United States, he's in India, he's been there to give me a shout out on Twitter, on social media, he's been as a sponsor, so I'm really, really blessed to have his support. So let me welcome Ilango R, the Global CHRO and EVP of Emerging Geographies Business Unit at Emphasis.
Nisha, thank you very much. I'm sorry it took a little while, but I seem to have figured out how to get my mugshot on live.
Glad you figured that out.
And as you can see, the picture was a lot better than the live shot. So
Oh,
now we
not at all. No. Not at all. Not
really
at all.
happy to be here. I remember speaking with you when I released my book, You Don't Need a Godfather. I
Correct.
think analytics is a very interesting subject. Like I tweeted, I'm on 2 sessions this week.
Yeah,
It
I
seems
saw
to be
that.
it seems to be the darling of the HR fraternity in India. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. I'm glad to see Ranjan, Amit, and Kathy also as co-panelists. So look forward to a good, interesting hour.
Right, right. So let's meet one more guest. Last but not least, but not the least. We met him on. I personally met him on Twitter, and we have been, Twitter followers for a longer period of time, and then kind of interacted with him for a longer period of time, and then we became friends on Facebook. So that's how the transition happens with every single guest on India HR Live. That's how I find our guests on India HR Live. So we are happy to have him, Amit Avasti. He is the GM, Human Resources at HCL Technologies. So let's meet him. Hey, Amit, if you can talk a little bit about yourself, the audience, those who are joining for the first time, and those who are meeting you for the first time will get to know you a little bit more.
Thanks, Nisha. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I I personally, when I started interacting with you, it's been a great interaction. So, and I've always followed India HR Live shows all over. So every show has something good about it, and there's some positive takeaways. And I hope at the end of the show we again have some takeaways for everyone. So welcome all guests and speakers. I think it's going to be a great interaction. Uh, just to talk a bit about myself, I started my HR career in the HR technology space and moved to consulting and then to line HR. So it's been quite a rounded journey for me, and it has given me a very different perspective about how things work, right from a data perspective all the way up to managing and designing new processes and systems. So I personally I am very inclined towards data-oriented processes, and I always within my team also I build a culture of data and analytics.
Great. So, well, everyone, glad to have you all as a panelist to talk about this fantastic subject on HR analytics. So, without further ado, let's open the panel discussion. As we all know, HR has access to this unprecedented data that we have, and we have this historical data, right, from the very beginning. But then, as Kathy has mentioned at the beginning, HR is still confused a little bit about what to measure and how to measure and when to measure and how to use that data to make some informed decision and to do a better workforce planning. So let's get to it and ask our guest what they would think about what HR should be paying attention to when we talk about data and analytics. So, Kathy, if you can start from your end, what do you think HR should be paying attention to when we talk about data and analytics?
Well, I'll start with the end. So I believe that HR needs to be paying attention to what drives business results. And so, we've talked in the U.S. and abroad about HR being more strategic for years. And really, it's about that alignment with the HR strategy, with the organizational strategy and how HR impacts that strategy. So, for example, engagement is just a bunch of data points, but really what you want to do is figure out what drivers of engagement drive business results. So I think that's the part that we really need to focus on is measuring things that really impact and influence the business. And I think we're so used to measuring transactional things like cost per hire and time to fill and turnover at a kind of high level instead of really digging down and really getting into the data to where it tells us the story. What's driving turnover? How does that impact results? You know, what's driving engagement, and does it impact results? Because sometimes those drivers, you'll find they really don't. So for me, it's about digging deeper and aligning yourself to the organizational strategy.
Great, wonderful. So, how about at Schneider Electronic India Limited? How do you use data and analytics to really transform your HR function?
Yeah. So Nisha, as they rightly say that you cannot manage what you cannot measure.
Correct.
So I think for very long in the past, HR has been driving a lot of initiatives, but unfortunately haven't been able to link it in terms of the effectiveness on it on the business. So today I think the art of HR is being replaced by science. And today we are able to very clearly link our initiatives to that of business results. So here at Schneider Electric, we have been trying to put in a system where we are able to measure the performance of HR at every stage of an employee life cycle, and then try to link it with the business and ensure that we are able to achieve the business results by keeping the employees motivated, by retaining them for a longer period of time, and ensuring that their production is being recognized.
Right, great. Well, great to hear that. There is a little bit of an echo that is coming from your end. So if you have a headset available somewhere near, we would really appreciate if you can use that so we can avoid that echo and will help provide a better clarity to our audience. So turning to Mr. Elingo, so what do you see or what do you say to HR professionals out there? What should they be paying attention to when we talk about data and analytics in the first place?
Yeah, see, I have the unique advantage of running a business and also running HR. As a business leader, when I look to my HR team, my first question is, tell me what is ROI? Because
Totally.
your business cycles are coming down, your market is being disrupted, customers are becoming very demanding because their whole environment is changing. Unless HR is able to bring to the table, and I'll give you an example, value, right? And value is an oft misused word. Many of the retention presentations today resemble schoolboy or at the best college presentation. It looks at demographic data. It tells me a lot of lag data as to why people quit. What I'd love to see aspirationally is somebody comes and tells me, Lango, I've noticed these 5 data points, and I think this person is most likely to thrive. Can you move quickly and either retain them or make sure you raise your requisition upfront so you're able to fill the position without business impact, or you're able to retain the person before your competitor makes an offer to them? I think that is what I'd love to see as a business leader from HR, and that's what I'm striving to create as HR leader at emphasis.
Well, this is such a great insight, as you said in the beginning. When we have data to back up your decision, it's really makes sense. So let's hear some from Amit Avasti as well. What do you say are some of the thoughts that you really wanted to communicate to our audience when it comes to data and analytics, and what should they be paying attention to?
Yeah, so I think, Nisha, this is a time where there's a huge opportunity for HR to invest in analytics, primarily driven by 3 factors. So one is there's an advent of cloud-based HR systems. So a lot of earlier systems which used to be transactional now are converging, and we have more availability of raw data for analysis purpose. There is a lot of social platforms that organizations are investing in. So that makes it easier for you to collaborate and bring together data from multiple sources. And third, of course, all the hype or the talk, whichever ways you look at it, on big data. So that's again an area where there's been a lot of focus going forward. So for HR to sell this to business or to the management is perhaps easier today as compared to any time in the past. And I think that's the opportunity that HR should use in this area. I would like to take an example of what really happened in one of my consulting assignments, where we were approached by a client who said that we are losing people on a very regular basis, and can you help us design some compensation plan for them? So the first question was, why compensation? So why do you think compensation is a problem? And they said, no, it must be compensation because they're all going and joining our competition. And at some point of time, the answer is not coming out clearly. And you would be surprised, when we analyzed the data, we came to an outcome saying that uh, there was this attrition was happening mostly in women who just married or had a kid. So it was more around work-life balance rather than something to do with
Compensation.
compensation. And I think that's a learning that we should always carry. So there's a lot we can do when we analyze the data the right way.
Correct. Well, indeed. Well, that's what Mr. Ilanko and Kathy also said in the beginning. We really need to know what to measure and how to use that to make some meaningful decisions. So basically, do you see in your HR department, or probably outside of HR department, there is a lack of knowledge in how to analyze the data, or probably what to analyze? Because the thing is, I don't see HR professionals as a data geek at the first place, because we are all people person, but we need to be having that sort of skill in order to dig deep and find some correlations and reveal the hidden connections between data and what's going to be the future, and use that as a predictive analysis to make your decision making and much more data driven. So what do you think are some of the skills gap that you see in current HR professionals? Or do you see that no, there is no skills gap, it's just a way of how to do it? We don't necessarily have to have a, Wall Street Journal, they have published a report saying that there is a rise of a role for data scientists.
Yeah.
And organizations are hiring these data scientists to reveal those hidden patterns in their data and to help make some decisions. So do you think there is a lack of skill set in the current HR professionals to read the science behind the data? And I would start with Kathy and then move on with every guest.
Well, you could tell I was about ready to jump out of my laptop to answer that question, but I do see a huge skill gap in the U.S. I've said this for many years. We've talked about being strategic, but we haven't thought strategically, which means that you have to have that critical evaluation skill set. And just recently did Sharm National add critical evaluation to its competency set. They just added that in 2012. I mean, that's way behind the scenes,
Correct.
And so I think that the business leaders have seen the gap in skills, because like you said, Nisha, it is we were the people for so long, and we didn't really have that as a requirement for our job. But now the business is demanding all this data. As you said, they're making decisions based on data, and I know in the U.S. they're doing that, especially post-recession, because they're gun-shy about decisions, so they want a lot of data to back that up. And if you're a service-based company, your people data is 60 to 80% of your data anyway. And so I train a lot of HR professionals, and it does worry me that that gap is open. And what I see in the U.S., and I saw it a little bit in China when I was there last month, is HR professionals, HR departments are recruiting HR professionals from other disciplines in the business, like finance, customer research, accounting, operations, to kind of import that skill set in. And that makes me a little nervous for current HR professionals, because that skill set, I think, is in high demand, and I don't see it going away.
Nisha, hearing Kathy say about the skill gap in the US, I'm sitting back and saying, oh, I thought we only had this issue in India. Measures she had saying in China too. Yeah, I agree with Kathy, but I have a different take, right? And see, the way I look at this is, it's like teaching a finance guy how to manage people. It's just impossible. And
Agreed.
on, I have this running feud with every finance professional that I know, friendly feud. I don't think you can teach HR guys how to do what a data scientist is supposed to do. Instead, what I'm attempting at emphasis is to say, let's get the specialists to take the data, what I call collect the data, collate the data, build an algorithm, and feed in the collated data in, and whatever insights come out of it, use the HR professionals to use those insights to deliver HR services quicker, faster, and earlier. Where you need HR is when I'm building the algorithm. I have a data set. A data scientist doesn't have the context. The HR guy can then provide the context and say, you know what, here are a few things that you can try. Why don't we try this? I think that's where HR will come, and we possess those skills. And I think once we have those algorithms spewing out, let's say one or two things, our ability to go and have those conversations early enough or act on that data, be willing to see data for what it is and not try and torture the data to tell us a story, is a mindset change that I'd look for. Skills, I don't think you can teach, because it is a very different. HR professionals are made very differently. It's a little like, when you're a chartered accountant, Kathy, for you, that's what a finance professional does here in India. They will always look to balance the left and the right. Whereas a HR professional is looking to see, how do I, read emotions? How do I manage people? So we've got to allow people to do the specialist jobs that they've trained for.
So I wanted to have a follow-up question on that before Amit. Thank you for that. So do you think, like in HR department, we necessarily have to have a support? For an example, just to have a data point, like every department will have a one connection data point to the HR. Like we have one person from finance department, and we have one person from marketing department, and one person from customer care department to give some information that HR can really use. So, do you suggest that should help? Um, Mr. Rango, my question was to you.
I think, data is required from everywhere, Nisha. And I'll give you this example of data that we collected, right? We're doing predictive analysis. And let's say I want to figure out if somebody is going to try. Now, where do I pick up data from? It need not necessarily come from customer service. It need not come from somebody else. The data is available with us. Here's an algorithm that I'm trying to build, right? Can I look at the number of times a person swipes in and out of the office? You have data that's available on your computer which says, how do you track, how many times do you go on a browser? On your email system, you're able to find out, and I know some of you guys will ask me another question. I'm ready for that. How many times are you sending emails to non-official IDs, right? And if you look at that and you start drawing patterns, and based on that pattern, you'll identify, let's say, 20 people that you believe are potentially attriting, but the data is all available. It's available in systems, they're available in structured, unstructured. How do you pick it, and how do you bring, and I think Kathy said this well, right? How do you bring meaning to that data is what is more important than where is the data, who gives it to you. I believe if you want it, you will find it. It's lying there in multiple places.
Right. Agreed.
I'm turning over the mic to Amit because I interrupted him last time.
No, thanks, Nisha. I think agree with what Kathy and Elango have said, but just a slightly different perspective. So, if we look at the current state, so somewhere the data is available, it's there in systems, but when we talk about professionals who can actually mine this data, how would an organization brand them? So they would be probably called transactional resources in the organization, or they would be called Excel experts. I don't think that's the way to look at it. And that's perhaps what's leading to this state where we have a dearth of people who can, and I know for a fact that there are people who come out fresh from the B school and they have that analytical orientation somewhere with all the multiple things that they do, they tend to lose that very fast. So somewhere I think, uh, and I'm not looking at it as an organization, multiple organizations, they face the same scenario. So I don't know, Ilango, Kathy, or Ramesh, would you have some thoughts on this, on really how we can look at this problem?
Um, Ramesh, would you like to add anything to
Yeah,
what Amit has said? Yeah.
yeah, I agree with all the speakers who spoke before. I believe that HR has not yet reached the level where it can consistently and quantitatively demonstrate the linkage to value creation. Therefore, there are many CEOs and CFOs who view HR very skeptically, and they largely see us as a support function because of reason. I think largely in the space of HR analytics, been largely reporting, and then probably in some organizations we move towards metrics, and recently started in terms of analytics. But I think it's much more than that. We need to go into the insights, into the impacts, and largely it's been reactive analytics. And as people said, it's not that HR people don't have this, but I think the need for it hasn't been there in the past. But what more linkages to business now, the need for us to effectively manage and analyze and then create patterns for insights and impacts of what people are doing.
Right, right. Well, it would be great if our guests can talk a little bit more about, we have this data, and everyone is saying, okay, use data and analytics to make meaningful decisions. But it would be great if our audience can listen to what are some problems that they have fixed by using the data, and they weren't able to fix that before. So, Mr. Ilenko, I would start with you. So, what are some HR issues or HR problems, or really burning problems that you recently find out a way to figure it out by using data in analytics? You were able to make better decision, a data-driven decision in your HR function.
Nisha, there are a few areas that I think naturally lend itself to this, right? I think staffing is one area that you can use data and analytics tremendously. When do you hire? Who do you hire? And I think I saw in your blog too, you mentioned about, I think Kathy's mentioned this about the clusters where they go to, where do you get most. Staffing lends itself tremendously to that. Retention is another place that lends itself to this very well. Third is, as the economy matures, particularly in India, and the IT business is consolidating, cost of revenues becomes a huge concern. Now, you have $100 to go around. Earlier, you'd give the $100 and maybe 10 to everybody. Maybe the high performer got 20% more. Now the question is, where am I better off spending instead of $100, $80, and get 2x the result that I would have got by spending 100, right? Those answers are not straightforward. I don't think our performance scores, our manager discretion allows you that. You've got to look at data like billing multiples. You've got to look at what is their propensity to try it, what is their market value. You've got to look at demand supply and come up with, come up with a matrix that says, you know what, you go pay Lango 1.5x, the chances that he will stay are better than if you pay, let's say, Amit 1.2. You can only pay, it's okay if you pay Amit 0.6 and he'll still stay back, right? So the decisions that you're taking are scientific, chances of success are better. Those are 3-4 reasons that I can think. I don't want to take away all the reasons. So Amit, Kathy, and Ramesh have more examples to talk about.
Right, great. Well, in fact, while talking that, I have a comment that I really wanted to share at this point. Is from Idea Bond, that's his Twitter handle, and he is saying, let's understand we are dealing with humans and not products. So analytics need to have human touch. So what, Kathy, I would want to ask you this question. What do you really wanted to answer to his thought, and do you really wanted to add anything to his thought? And I would really, really appreciate if you can share some of the examples from any of your clients. You don't necessarily don't have to reveal the names, but still some of the key issues that you were able to solve using the data and analytics.
Okay. I'm going to go first with the Twitter question about, we are dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, we are dealing with people. And who better to interpret and use this data than the HR department? And data is what data is, right? We can look at the data and we could typically interpret that data, and we know behavior. The HR professionals know behavior, and so we can make sense out of that data and we can tell the correct data story. So I am not a proponent for managing people, managing people like robots with data. I'm a proponent of increasing performance through the data, and it gives us insights into the people. And so I think there's a very healthy balance between the people and the data, and I think we're perfect. HR is perfect to strike that balance. Right. And then as far as the examples, I liked all the previous examples. A couple that I've been involved with in the areas of why are people leaving, especially top performers or high performers, getting to that root cause, and then being predictive about those top performers leaving, so you can kind of nip that in the bud. So that was one study. Also looking at the business results and understanding the behaviors driving those results. So think in retail, think about when you have a shrink problem or shrinkage, when you're losing product. That's all driven by human behavior, whether it's theft by the employee or theft by the customer. So getting down to those competencies and processes and trainings that mitigate that shrinkage number. Also, you can think about it in healthcare, thinking about patient care, thinking about nurses and what are the drivers, what are those competencies, those skills that allow them to give the best patient experience. And once you nail those, you can train to it, hire to it, measure it, and fire to it as well. So those are just a few examples in my world.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to touch back with, yeah, Amit, go ahead.
No, thanks. I think agree with what Kathy said. Just to add on another perspective to this, so I feel somewhere it has also got to do with how well we are able to justify to the business what value HR is adding. And I think with the amount of investment being limited and multiple sources of investments being there, so if I look at two businesses, which business should I invest more money on? Picking up what Elango was also talking about, I think somewhere with all the data backing, I think we'll be able to make more prudent decisions, and that's the need of the hour, if you really ask me. It's more about understanding and channelizing our resources in the right way, backed by data, rather than making calls which are more people oriented. So I'm not saying that we don't need to be humane and people oriented, but at the same time, some of these calls around the data need to be very, very well defined. So just to take an example, can I link my sales system to the performance management system and see what impact does customer intimacy or customer scores have on, and how they are correlated to the performance rating of the individual internally. I think those are some of the things. If we fine tune better, we'll be able to generate better resources for the organization.
Right. Right. So, Mr. Ramesh, we kind of talked a little bit about how you have used analytics at Schneider Electric Limited when it comes to providing a great employee experience and total employee experience and implemented voice, which is a great initiative. So, we would really appreciate if you can talk a little bit more about that and how did you use predictive analysis to make your HR decisions.
Sure. Jen, you see in the past, we used to measure the employee satisfaction by experience only probably once in a year or once in 6 months. But then we realized that the employees have a different stages in the employee life cycle from entry to exit. So what we did is we started measuring the voice of the employees at each stage of the employee life cycle. Like the moment an offer was made, we went back and sort of feedback as to what has been the selection process and the candidate experience interacting with Schneider Electric. We then said after a person joined on day one, what is his first impression? And 90 days after the person joined, we went back and sought a feedback from him as to how has been the experience in the first 90 days. Does he know about who his supervisor is, who his buddy is? Has he got all the equipment and the resources required to effectively work on the job? And then we also did this annual appraisal surveys after the appraisal to find out how the employees have felt about the whole process of appraisal after the salary review process. So at every stage of an employee life cycle, we start to get a feedback, and therefore we were able to understand the mood of the person rather than just going back once a year or once in 2 years to understand what's the satisfaction level of employees. So this helped us to get a very good insight as to knowing what is the employee's experience, how satisfied is the company and the various services that the HR is providing to the employee.
Right, great. So by that, I would wanted to move on to the next question. And Mr. Lingo, if you can start from your end, it would be great. So this would be the question that comes to every single HR person. What are some metrics and measurement that I should be focusing on to make some better HR decisions? So what are some metrics and measurement you wanted to suggest to our audience?
Yeah, before I start that, Nisha, I just noticed on the Twitter handle, it's a bit distracting. We've got a lot of interaction, huh?
Yeah, we normally have around 70 to 100 people joining on Twitter, and it is really distracting while you are talking on the show. But thank you so much for tweeting in between.
Answering what they're asking to listening to the panelists. It's terrific. Listen, anyway, I'll come to your question on, I think we as HR folks should stop looking at metrics, right? Metrics is lag data. Metrics doesn't give you correlations, doesn't give you causal information, doesn't give you patterns. It just tells you what happened. We should focus on data and connecting the dots, building patterns, looking at correlations, and seeing what the unseen eye is. Today we look at data which is very apparent to the naked eye. We should be able to pick that up and see what is below the numbers. Can I dig deeper? Can I see what the causal relationships are? Is there a pattern that's coming out? I think that's what HR folks should be looking at. I think Gen 1.0 is metrics, Gen 3.0 is looking at data and seeing what meaning that we can get from them. That would be my advice, Nisha.
Right. Amit, would you like to take the next turn?
No, yeah, I absolutely agree with the Lango, and I think metrics really do not give anything, and we have been spending too much of time as HR working on meeting certain metrics or defining those metrics and making people accountable for them. I think we need to move beyond that. We need to move to predictable analytics. But really, what you should do in that space is dependent on what your problems are, or what your hot buttons are, and how you would want to sort them out.
Yeah.
So getting to the right problems and then trying to find out a solution with all the data available to you is the approach I think we should be taking.
I'm sure it should be the mutual idea or mutual thought of everyone. And if Kathy or Ramesh, would you like to add any different thought other than what Elango and Amit has said?
You know, I concur. I mean, metrics are. I loved his quote. Metrics are, you know, line measures, and that's what happened today. And we've got to focus on what could happen or what's going to happen tomorrow to add value to the business. And I absolutely agree. You know, when people come up to me and say, "What should I measure?" I just want to, you know, I just want to crawl under my desk because it's different for different companies. It's, you know, like's already been said, it's what's your business problem? What's your business strategy? What are you trying to do? You know, what are your issues? And all that impacts how you're going to analyze the data and then what you're going to track after that. So I couldn't concur more.
Right, right. So I'm moving on to our Twitter questions next. So we have a bunch of questions that has come up at this point. The next question is from Nubor. She is asking how to increase performance by using data analytics. So who wants to take that question?
I can try.
Go ahead. You have it.
So, you know, I think where you can use data to improve performance, if I understood this question right, if I have, let's say, an employee, and today what we do is we take one-size-fits-all approach. Even our resource management groups, so I don't know, even when you say fitting a square peg in a round hole doesn't hold good because you don't know whether the hole is round or square, right? And you don't know whether the peg is square too. I think what we can do is do a little like what the e-commerce retailers do, right? This is my aspiration, and I think it is possible. Like for instance, when I go and shop online, I have suggestions that come up. There's something that comes and says people who bought this also bought this. Now let me give you an analogy. If I converted this to the workplace, let's say I'm assigned a project and I get an email, or I have an internal website like Facebook, which I log in and says, hey, Longo, you've been assigned to this project. By the way, you know, we've looked at your skill sets. Here are 3 training programs that you could attend to. By the way, on the left-hand side, there are 4 people who can collaborate for you because they worked on similar projects like you. If you click and talk to them, you should be able to talk to them. I brought my entire collaboration, knowledge, tools, skills, everything in one page for me to be able to do it. It is not as science fiction as I said. I think it will be available in the next 3-4 years. I hope some entrepreneurs listening to this and hopefully will create it if they don't know I have it. I think that's the way you should be able to dramatically or exponentially improve performance.
Correct, right. Well, we do have a lot of, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Amit. We do have a lot of entrepreneurs that are starting to evolve by using their business to help other businesses on using how data and analytics can be used to make better decisions. Well, after listening to Elango, I wanted to bring up this next question. This is again from Nubur, but reading that, it kind of reminding me my older days of back in India when I was working in Reliance Communications Limited. It's not that very long. I think 5 years ago, I can still remember I'm sitting in front of a computer downloading my HR reports from SAP, and then using equations in my Excel sheet to figure out cost per hire and everything. But now things have changed. So you know what? It's just only 5 years right now. And then Nuber's question is adopting data analytic compulsory to brought into practice? What used to happen earlier? So this is I really wanted to focus on. And Amit, would you like to answer to her? What's your take on? You know, is it really compulsory going forward for the HR to evolve in the next 5 years or so?
I think sooner. I would say sooner. So I think the ability to measure has evolved definitely, considering what SAP, and you refer to SAP, I come from SAP. So what SAP used to be way back in 2000 and what it is now. There's also this whole suite of enterprise analytics which is available along with it. So
Correct.
ability to measure has enhanced. What has probably not happened is how clean the data is and how well I'm able to bring together the multiple parts of that the data jigsaw puzzle and say that yes, with this data, my analysis is going to be correct. So getting to a single source of truth, as we call it, it's still a challenge when it comes to data.
Yeah.
But somewhere a start has to be made, and maybe you could start with one area and then try to clean data as you go along. It's a journey. It cannot be a race.
Yeah.
And Nisha, just wanted to add to the previous discussion also. So I had this interesting thought around how actually athletes improve their performance. So you would have seen athletes strive from reducing their running time from 8.45 to 8.43, and
Correct.
I think that kind of a strive is not just by giving them a better goal to achieve. So it's also got to do with a graded plan to actually enhance uh, the goal and their appetite to reach that goal. So somewhere in our HR balance, somewhere that bit is missing today. So we tend to push individuals to higher responsibilities, higher jobs, without actually evaluating how well they have been able to do what they were supposed to do, and that kinds of puts a pressure on performance.
Yep.
Uh, just wanted to add that.
Yep.
So, my next question would be, I mean, thank you so much for answering that question, and it's really interesting that you brought up real insights and real examples out there. So, my next question from our Twitter stream comment, but at the same point of time, this is again a thought that every HR professional would have in their mind, and every business people will have this thought in their mind. Do you think that bringing up somebody outside of HR function would help make better decisions in your HR functions?
Mm.
Or do you see that it is working for your clients?
Mm.
Kathy?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
That's a really, really hard question. Because I see my clients bringing talent in from other disciplines, either internally or externally, and I see that working. And, Google started that, 5 or 7 years ago with their 3/3 model with, a third of the HR department was HR technicians, a third was statisticians, and a third were from outside the business. And so they kind of started that path. And so I do see my clients importing business acumen skills, critical evaluation skills, higher statistical skills. I do see that happening. Now, back to your first question, do I think somebody from outside HR could do a better job? I still believe that we are the people. My glass is still half full. I think what we need to do is we just need to be, if we're not going to understand statistics, if we're not going to get in and do regressions and correlations, then we need to be good consumers of data. In other words, know the right questions to ask, and then get the right people in to crunch the numbers, do the data analysis, these data scientists we've been talking about. But the top HR person should be able to interpret, understand what the data means, and link that to the business.
Right. Mr. Alinga, would you like to add anything on what?
I was actually, Kathy, I must give it to you. I thought being a consultant, you'd say you must get somebody from outside because you've at least got 2 things out of it. But data is proving me wrong that not all consultants want to come. I hit the nail on the head. It is really about asking the right questions.
Yes.
You need to know how to do the data, but you need to ask the right questions. And the decision will have to be taken internally once you've asked right questions, somebody does the data, because you have the context of what works, right? Like somebody said earlier, asking somebody saying what metrics that I should measure is a wrong question, because what works for somebody else will not work for you. So I think
Absolutely.
questions and context is probably what is important to the question that you just asked.
Agree. Yep.
Agree, totally agree. Well, what you guys have said is very indeed an insightful conversation. But at the same point of time, we need to have that basic tools and technologies in the beginning to help us make decision much faster, because when we have these upgraded tools right now, because right, as Amit has said, right now 5 years ago, what I have used SAP is entirely different than what I have right now. They have upgraded their tool, which will help me to make my job, helping me to do my job a little more faster and better. So what do you think are some of the tools and technologies that HR should definitely try it out when it comes to using data and analytics? My question to Amit, and then I'm moving on to everyone.
So I think again I would say that every tool in its own might will be able to give you similar answers. So while there are a whole lot of suites available in the market which people can really look forward to. So just to name, Cornerstone is one, Success Factors is another, and Workdays is the third one, which I know for sure is a great tool. Uh, and somewhere it's not just limited to the tool, it's more about how you are able to leverage that tool. So what kind of a support system you have. So is it the IT team which is entirely managing your HR systems? Then the perspective would also be similar. But you have a dedicated HR team within the IT team. I think the value that those tools will bring to you will be very different. And again, the purpose and how you want to leverage the tools is very important here.
Totally. Kathy, what do you suggest to our audience, especially for those startups who don't necessarily have the budget to implement a sophisticated software in the first place? Do you suggest any small tools and technologies that are available out there, or probably some of the techniques that you would suggest to your clients?
Well, I think in my experience, over the last few years, we've come a long way with this, and so I would say when you're ready to graduate from 25 Excel spreadsheets, perhaps I don't know if you're familiar with Vizier.
Mm-hmm.
John Schwartz, I believe, was on the radio show yesterday.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday.
So you're familiar.
Yeah.
I believe that software is a great tool. I don't feel like it's very expensive. I think it's very intuitive. It even has algorithms behind the scenes. It's got charts, graphs, so you can tell the data story. So for me, I think it's a really, really good tool for that company that doesn't have the success factors and doesn't have the SAPs and things of that nature. And Excel is getting very cumbersome. So yeah.
Totally. So I'm moving on to the next question that is from, oops, I kind of lost it in between, and a lot of tweets are coming up at this point, and I kind of lost it, and I got it. It is from Pooja Arora. She is asking, how do we relate HR data with that of core business decisions when we talk of profit center? Mr. Erlangu, would you like to answer to her question?
Yeah, good question. I think we've got to, instead of looking at HR data, I'd say what people decisions that we take that support the business strategy, and therefore, what data should we look at? So let me give you this example, right? If let's say the strategy of a company is to grow in a particular region, then a lot of the focus should be on staffing. If the company is going through a downturn and therefore they need to look at costs, a lot of the data crunching should be around cost. So the strategy and the focus areas, the business units that you support, to determine the data that you look at to be able to take those business decisions is the way I'd answer that.
Right. Mr. Ramesh, would you like to add any thoughts on what Mr. Erlangu has already said?
Yeah, as you rightly said that it depends on what is it that we are looking at as a strategy for the company. Is it about growing the business? Is it about increasing the profitability? Is it about improving our market share? And based on that, what is it that we as HR would initiate as an HR strategy? And then accordingly, we'll have to do the analysis of the data.
Right. Thank you so much. Well, we are actually about to wrap up the show at this point, and it's been a fantastic conversation. I know everybody has um, enjoyed the show because we are getting tens and tens of tweets at this point, and people who are watching on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook channel, please feel free to let us know if you're watching by adding a comment or sharing any of your thoughts on Facebook or on our website or on YouTube page. Please feel free to join in. And my last question would be, what do you think a high performing HR analyst or HR function who has a analytical capability would look like? And this question is to every guest, and I wanted to start with Amit. Amit, what do you say? What do you see a high perform or how do you see a high performing HR analyst would look like?
So, if you were to profile a person like that, somebody who is very comfortable with data, somebody who can get into, it's about looking at the micro as well as the macro perspective. So you don't just need to be very data focused. Somewhere you need to understand patterns, and you should be able to correlate those patterns together. I think it's a skill which is very much required in a high performing data analyst. Uh, I also feel there's another element of that curiosity of linking everything to how business outcomes would be impacted is again a key that needs to be there.
Great. How about you, Kathy?
Well, I agree with everything he said. I would add a business acumen competency, understanding the business, the balance sheet, the cash flows, the P&L to that, because all of those, that's important. Understanding the business and how the business makes money, how cash flows through the business. I think relationship building is going to be key, because when we start asking for data for predictive purposes, and we have to go outside of HR to get that data, sometimes people get a little nervous. So I think relationship building is really key. So I'd add those two competencies. And if you find that person, let me know so I can hire them.
All right. So how about you, Mr. Raligo? When you are looking to hire the next person in your HR function, what are some of the...
I'll tell you on a lighter note that high-performing data analytics person definitely doesn't look like me at all. You sort of look for somebody else. I think Amit and Kathy covered everything. In my mind, I'd look for a highly inquisitive, curious mind that has the competency to draw patterns out of nothing, has the statistical knowledge to be able to look at different data analysis and draw meaning out of nothing, right? I think that's what I would say. Somebody who's willing to live with ambiguity, attention to detail, and has a perseverance to dig deeper. Because analytics, in what I've seen, first 3 swipes gives you nonsense. It's only the 4th or the 5th swipe you start seeing the data behind the details behind the data.
Right. Thank you so much. And how about you?
There is somebody, I think Prashant Joglekar's answer was probably the best one earlier, where he said form the hypothesis first and then design the analytics, because he's spot on. I think the answer, the question that you asked on the business problem, you must commend and credit Prashant for that fantastic answer.
Correct, and indeed, and I have retweeted that a while ago, but I'm not able to see that. It's underneath somewhere in the stream. So how about you, Mr. Ramesh? What would you like to share?
Yeah, I remember a leader whom I was supporting for some time back, and he used to say, I can always smell that something is wrong. So I think numbers can be misleading. So we need somebody who's an analyst who, of course, relies on the numbers, but also has got a flair to know what these numbers mean and can understand the pulse of the people and how we can interpret this data to really see what are the trends coming out, what are the patterns, and what the impact it's going to have on the people in the business. So I think we should be able to smell what's in the store.
Great. Well, we are running out of time at this point, and thank you so much to all of our panelists who have joined in on the show from different parts of the world. And thank you so much to all of our audience who have tuned in to our show and giving us a great shout out and tweeting along the way. Because without your support, we couldn't have achieved this success, and we couldn't have done this show without your support. And thank you so much for inviting into your personal or private time. And I appreciate you guys for tuning into our social media platforms everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on our website indiahrlive.com as well. So Amit, Kathy, Mr. Lanko, Mr. Ramesh, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate your support and look forward to having you again on the show. And thank you so much for a delightful conversation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Nisha. Thanks, Anango. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ramesh.
Bye.
Bye.
So time and time again, we are getting speakers requests, and how do I become a speaker at India HR Live? If you are looking to become a speaker at India HR Live, trying to get in touch with us, send us your email to indiahrlive@gmail.com or send me a direct message. That'll work. So without further ado, bye-bye to everyone, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.